I'm going to answer one question which is related to the roles and responsibilities of a full stack developer. So before I start, so let me tell you that the roles and responsibility depends on your seniority. It varies on company to company. So if you are starting your journey from a startup company, the roles and responsibility will be slightly different. If you are in a mid-sized company, the roles and responsibility will be different. And if you are in an MNC or very big company, then the roles and responsibilities will be different. Now, also, as I said earlier, like it depends on your years of experience and your seniority. For example, if you are just starting your career, let's say you are a fresher or 1 year or 2 years experience, then the roles and responsibilities will be a bit less. But the more time you spend in the industry, when you become a senior, let's say when you are holding around 6 years, 8 years experience, roles and responsibilities will definitely get increased. So let's start with some very common roles and responsibilities of a full stack developer. The first thing is you need to know what is a full stack called, right? So full stack means knowledge of each and every technology stack that we use in a software. That means starting from the very bottom, that means the cloud side knowledge, the backend knowledge, the database knowledge, the API knowledge, and the front end knowledge. So as a full stack developer, you should know each and everything. So first, your main roles and responsibilities is to work on any of this layer. So you might have to work on the client side. So let's say if you are a front end you are good in front end. Let's say you might need to work on the front end side of the software. At the same time, if you are good in the backend side, so it is also possible that as a full stack developer, you might need to work on the backend side. That means maybe you need to implement lots of APIs. You need to see the securities and all this thing. You might need to implement a good database model. You might need to understand how to scale an application and all these things. At the same time, when you are in the working on the front end side, it doesn't mean that you will only work with HTML, CSS, or basic JavaScript. You have to work with some CSS frameworks if required, for example, Bootstrap or Materialize. You also need to work with some front end framework. For example, we have Angular or we have React. So building APIs, working on the client side, making the user interface responsive. So all are basically one part of your entire roles and responsibilities. Now, the more time you spend in the industry, the more works will be added. For example, you need to attend the client session to help them understanding what you are going to solve, how you are going to solve, providing them the solution. Okay, so for example, since see you are a full stack developer, so you are capable to become a lead. So definitely when you are a lead, you should know how we are going to implement a software or what will be the solution. So for example, let's say a client came tomorrow and they say that, hey, I want to implement ABCD. Okay, so what you will do, see, you are the full stack developer. And why the client has asked you? He has asked you because you are the full stack, because you have the knowledge of all the layers. Okay, so that's why the client has asked you. Now the thing is, the first thing that you have to do is when we are building a product from scratch, so first thing that you have to do is the feasibility check, like how we will implement that, what are the resources we have, and what are the technologies we are going to use, and all these things. After that, we need to finalize some technologies. Like, okay, so we will use this in the backend side, we will use this in the database side, we will use that in the front end side, and so on. After that, we need to work on two separate things at the same time. One thing is to building some sort of mock-ups. Like, okay, so you want to build ABCD. Okay, so if I implement this ABCD, so this will be the UI. Okay, so this also comes into our plate. After that, we also need to start working on the database model. Okay, like whenever we want to implement something, we need to think about the storage, like how we will store those data, how we will manage those data, and all this thing. And here comes this database modeling thing. So we have to implement all this database model, and once we are done, then we have to start implementing the API. And the API means it comes under the backend side. So after we are done with the implementation of the backend side, we also need to take care of its scalability. That means whenever we implement something, we should know how we can expand it. So let's say I have implemented a software which can handle, let's say, 1,000 of requests. What will happen if tomorrow I have to handle 10,000 of requests? So is it possible with this approach? That we need to finalize. After we are done with this part, also we need to think about this front end side as well. Okay, so front end will also start working on this on the products UI part, and once their side, now it's time to integrate the front end and the back end, and then once the integration is done, we start doing the overall testing, and if everything is working smoothly, then we deliver it to the client. Now, the next question that I have is like how we chose this thing, like who will be a good person or a good candidate for a full stack developer role in a company. So, for example, if I talk about my company, so I also work as a recruiter in my company. I have to take the interviews and all this thing to finalize whom to choose for my team. The most important thing is in my team, only full stack developers are allowed. Okay, but the rules is he needs to be a full stack developer. That means he should have the knowledge of all the layers. On the top of that, he should be a master at least in one layer. It could be front end, it could be back end. Okay, the first rules, he should be a full stack developer. Second rules, he should be an expert or master of either front end or back end. So now after this, we don't definitely take some sort of interviews to finalize, like we do multiple rounds of technical discussion. We then they do some sort of managerial round, and then HR round and all these things. These are just like the common industry standard. So other responsibilities could be writing test cases, writing automation test cases, building features and all these things, maintaining the security of the softwares, then building some failover systems, so that if something goes wrong in any time, what will be this process to recover my product. So all this comes under the roles and responsibility. Now, if I talk about the next thing, which is how you can become a full stack developer, what are the core knowledges that are required? So the first thing is definitely you should know all these stack. Okay, you should know how all these layers, which is basically we call it an n-tier architecture. So how all the tiers actually work. For example, how front end work, how back end work, how database work, how an API work, how this API implement a communication between the client or the front end or the back end, then how to deploy it into the cloud. So all this knowledge you should have. Now this is the basic knowledge. So after you are done with all this basic knowledge, what next you have to do is you have to learn some framework of all these layers. For example, in the front end we have React or Angular. So make sure you have sufficient knowledge of at least one framework, one front end framework. Now in the back end, you have to choose a framework. For example, if you have chosen Python language in the back end, then you have to learn Django, Flask. So this kind of, or Fast API now. So this kind of framework, okay? At least one framework. Then in the CSS side also you have to learn some of the knowledge. You should have some of the knowledge of the CSS framework, for example, Bootstrap or Materialize. You should know how these actually work. Remember, see, if you know how Bootstrap work, you will understand how Materialize CSS work, because the core concept is actually the same. Okay, the thing is how to use them. There are slightly different. So that means if you have knowledge of one framework, you will automatically understand how others are actually working. After that, you should now here is the time to understand either front end or back end or database in the next level. You need to be a master of that. Okay, so you can choose front end or you can choose back end, and make sure to build yourself in such a way that you can handle any kind of problem related to that particular layer. Okay, so these are the minimum requirements. And yeah, that's it, and this is how you will become a full stack developer.
Thanks for watching. Do like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to click the bell icon. #स्किल से करियर तक हम आपके साथ हैं.